Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, plain and simple, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. We're going to study the prophecy of Obadiah. It's only one chapter, um, and you know, I'm really regretting. I probably since I'm doing the minor prophets and I'm doing them in chronological order for the date, according to the date or the estimate date of the writing, the time of the writing. And the reason why I chose to do it chronologically is because I wanted to get the feel of the time of the prophets of the word of the Lord. And so um, I thought I probably read something about that. I was doing some kind of research about Obadiah, that there was a debate in terms of the dating of Obadiah. So there were some who put it later date. Let me jump into my screen here. And I'm going to say my point is regretting that. So I use this chart. I think it's an excellent chart. I have a couple of Bible charts. You can get these online. Just Google them and then download them, like as I did here. They're online. And these, uh, uh, kind of estimate dates. Now, what is interesting about the this timeline, it does not line up with how the books are arranged in our Bible. So if I go to the books as they are arranged here, so you go back, I'm going to stick with the writing of the prophets. So how the writings of the prophets are arranged in our Bible, and pretty much any Bible you have, pretty much is going to be arranged this way. So you have the major prophets, which is Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, and Daniel. So those are the major, and this is how they are arranged. So Isaiah being the earliest of the date, and then Daniel the latest. Okay. But then they switch to the minor prophets, and actually within the minor prophets, there are actually kind of two divisions here. So you have the first set, which goes all the way up from Hosea to Zephaniah, okay, in terms of the writing. But then the last three, Haggai, which we will do after we go through Daniel, but Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, these are dated much later, so post um, exile. Okay. Now again, so what I'm saying, so now these minor prophets, Hosea to Zephaniah, most of them are before that, in terms of dating wise, before the book of Jeremiah. That's why I am studying going through them, because I wanted us to get again the feel of the prophetic voice. These are prophecies starting early on, and then as we see the prophecy, they intensify in prophet in their words. So that remember Habakkuk was distressed. God, why are you bringing this nation against us? And notice at one point he was even saying that, okay, I just got to wait for the end. So like here with Habakkuk and then Zephaniah. Now here is the interesting thing here. You see how they are arranged here in our Bible, which is the standard. But yet when we go to the dating here, there's a difference in the dating. Now, the one thing I want you to put up is look at where Obadiah is dated 853 BC. Now, I should have probably heeded that because I think, as we will see, the prophetic voice fits more of this time as the prophetic words started to ramp up. God is beginning to warn Israel. So now you notice as you're coming down, we see Joel, and then Amos, Jonah, Hosea, all these before. Then you get into Isaiah, and then remember as we get into Isaiah, uh, we have, now here's the interesting thing here, Nahum, and then notice this, Zephaniah, right? And then Habakkuk comes in a little after Jeremiah, okay, depending on the dating. So that's why we did that. Now, Obadiah started it dated a lot earlier. So right around the time of, where you at, Obadiah? 853, isn't it? Yeah. Um, the prof, as we're going to see, there's a couple of things I want you to pay attention to the dating here. Right around Jehoshaphat, which again, um, right around Elijah the prophet and Jehoshaphat. So this is where Obadiah comes in at, okay? Now the point I want to also point out is that as early as this date is, or going back as this date, God begins to prophesy, and you will see one of the prophecies about the second coming. Now, like I say, I think I just kind of made a mistake that I probably should have done it at this point as opposed to when I did it as I'm doing it now. But anyway, let's go to Obadiah. And you can see, I'll tell you why I think I messed up in terms of my chronological order. Okay. All right. So Obadiah says, the vision of Obadiah. This is what the Lord God has said about Edom. Now, this is one reason it should have been a clue to me, because he's talking about Edom. Now, Edom is the land of Esau. Okay. He says, we have heard a message from the Lord. A messenger has been sent among the nations. Rise up. Let us go to war against her. Look, I will make you insignificant among the nations. You will be deeply despised. Your presumptuous heart has deceived you. You will live in the clefts of the rocks, in your home on the heights. Who say to yourself, who can bring me down to the ground? Though you think to soar like an eagle and make a nest among the stars, even from there I will bring you down. This is the Lord's declaration. So again, like I say, he's prophesying. One of the things about prophecy is you see God predicting or pronouncing judgment on Israel, then Judah, but also all of the nations around, the surrounding nations, right, that surrounded Israel. He pronounces judgment on them. Verse 5. If thieves came to you and marauders or raiders by night, how ravaged you would be. Wouldn't they steal only what they wanted? If grape pickers came to you, would they leave some grapes? How Esau would be pillaged, his hidden treasures searched out. Everyone who has a treaty with you will drive you to the border. Everyone at peace with you will deceive and conquer you. Those who eat your bread will set a trap for you. He will be unaware of it in that day. This is the Lord's declaration. Will I not eliminate the wise ones from Edom and those who understand from the hill country of Esau? Timon, your warriors would be terrified, so that everyone from the hill country of Esau would be destroyed by slaughter. Now, if you remember, Esau was Jacob's brother. God hated Esau but loved Jacob. Esau himself was a very perverse person. If you saw him, you'd be like, ugh, I just hate to be around him, right? Just, ugh. Later in life, he seemed to mellow out. But in other words, he was so perverse, he sold his birthright for just a bowl of soup. He acted like he was dying, and then Jacob schemed him, to sell his birthright. It's kind of silly. Verse 10. I mean, to go back, if you go back in Genesis, you can read the history of it. And then Esau hated Jacob because he blamed him for the stupidity he did. But anyway, verse 10, you will be covered with shame and destroyed forever because of the violence done to your brother Jacob. On the day you stood aloof, on the day strangers captured his wealth, while foreigners entered his gate and cast lots for Jerusalem, you were like one of them. Now, let me stop right here because again, a lot of people, this is where some, when you think about how scholars, they call internal evidence of dating and internal evidence of writing, this is how some scholars seem to think, is why they think Obadiah is of a much later date. But Israel hasn't fallen yet. And that's the whole point. Jerusalem hasn't fallen yet. Israel has, but Jerusalem hasn't. Okay? But this is just one of the evidence right here, this verse 11. But it also could have been one of the times that Jerusalem was just kind of defeated as well. So it's another day you stood aloof. On that day, strangers captured his wealth, while foreigners entered his gate and cast lots for Jerusalem. You were like one of them. So remember, around the time where they arranged this, trust me, when Nebuchadnezzar comes, they won't be referring to foreigners as many, but one. Verse 12. Do not gloat over your brother in the day of his calamity. Do not rejoice over the people of Judah in the day of their destruction. Do not boastfully mock in the day of distress. Do not enter my people in the day of their disaster. Yes, you do not gloat over their misery in the day of their disaster, and do not appropriate their possessions in the day of their disasters. Do not stand on the crossroads to cut off the fugitives. Do not hand over the survivors in the day of distress. So, in other words, don't take advantage when they're down. Do not take advantage of them when they're down. And this is what God is criticizing them for. Instead of helping them, you take advantage of them. Verse 15, for the day of the Lord is near against all nations. So the earlier date, 853, notice how early we start seeing the prophetic voice here of Obadiah, talking about the day of the Lord. Notice he said the day of the Lord is near. Notice he said against all nations. As you have done, so it will be done to you. What you deserve will return on your own heads, as you have drunk on my holy mountains. So all nations will drink continually. They will drink and gulp down and be as though they had never been. But there will be a deliverance on Mount Zion, and it will be holy. The house of Jacob will depose those who depose them. Then the house of Jacob will be blazing fire, and the house of Joseph a burning flame. But the house of Esau will be stubble. Jacob will set them on fire and consume them, and consume Edom. Therefore no survivors will remain of the house of Esau. The Lord has spoken it. So Israel will prosper, but Edom will fade away. Okay, verse 19. People from Negev will possess the hill country of Esau. Those from Judea foothills will possess, from the Judean foothills will possess the land of the Philistines. They will possess the territories of Ephraim and Samaria, while Benjamin will possess Gilead. The exiles of the Israelites who are in Halah, and all who are among the Canaanites as far as Zarephath. Now, if you remember, Jesus mentioned Zarephath, because that's where the widow in Elijah's time, Elijah was sent to the widow at Zarephath. Jesus went to her. Elijah. There was during the time of. In fact, this is even more gives more credence to the dating of Obadiah. But during Elijah's time, there was a widow that used to prepare. There was, this was during the wicked king of Ahab, and so God had a famine for 3 years. Elijah goes to this lady and says, "Prepare yourself because it's going to be a famine." She obeyed the prophet and survived when everyone else had it rough. So Jesus says, "So who did the Lord send?" And he mentions the city Zarephath. The exiles of Israel are in Halah, and those among the Canaanites as far as Zarephath, as well as the exiles of Jerusalem who are in Sepharad, who will possess the cities of Neges. Saviors will ascend Mount Zion to rule over the hill country of Esau, but the kingdom will be the Lord's. So, again, a prophecy against Esau, the descendants of, the descendants of Esau. And again, notice again, the day of the Lord is near against all nations. The day of the Lord is always spoken of throughout the Old Testament. All right, so next study we're going to get into Jeremiah, and that's going to be, forewarn you, it will be it's going to be a hard book, because there we're going to see the actual death of the nation, the actual death of the nation. So it's not going to be a pleasant book, but it's going to be the actual death of the nation. So all of this prophecy that God has been prophesying up until this time, and now you're going to be, when Jeremiah, we're going to see God is going to say, okay, and Jeremiah comes on the scene about 20 years before the Babylonian invasion. And then, but when it happens, it will be bad. All right, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. I'll see you in the next study.